Hey everybody, Pete A. Turner, executive producer and host of the Break It Down Show. Today's episode features a friend of mine, Jason Piccolo. He and Scott and I are constantly exchanging networked people and trying to get guests for one another. Jason is an expert on border security and getting people across the border, what's legal, what's illegal, the kids in cages things. And we've talked before, so I'll definitely link his episode in the show notes, so check that out because you want to have an understanding of his capacity to talk about the border and also what it takes to solve these problems and what we do and primarily don't see from Congress. This episode in particular, and this is going to open a number of episodes that we're going to explore this topic, but this episode in particular talks about human trafficking and in particular little kids being used as vehicles for getting across the border and immigrating illegally into the United States. This isn't to say we're anti-immigration, it's to say we're anti-using kids and having no regard for their long-term well-being. So these kids are used to go across the border, and then they're sent back to the Mexican side, and this repeatedly happens over and over again. And commoditizing kids, that ain't cool. So this will give you an understanding of this situation and how complex it is, and really ultimately what we have to do in Washington to try to solve these things. That's it for that. Jason Piccolo is great. You're going to love that part. Here's how you support the show. You can go to the website, and there's a PayPal button. You can push the button there. You can buy shirts. You can share the show wherever you're at, however you want. We'd love to hear from you. Pete at breakitdownshow.com. Talk to me, and we're glad to do things. We have so many incredible things coming up. I can't even tell you right now. It is super exciting. There are a lot of interesting and emerging things coming, so hopefully there'll be a lot of more things that will keep your interest. As always, Save the Brave, savethebrave.org. Go to the donate tab, put a small amount of money in, and each month we'll come in and take that out, and you will support a very valuable cause. Follow Save the Brave on all social media. And now here comes Jason Piccolo.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Mohr.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland. This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hey, this is Jason Piccolo. Welcome to the Break It Down Show. Thanks for having me on, Pete.
Yeah, my pleasure. So Jason Piccolo and I have become friends over the past year or so, and one of the best benefits, Jason, of having a podcast, and I'm positive that you know this, is just the people that you get to meet and encounter, and we share guests all the time. You were constantly sending me people, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't even keep up. How am I going to reciprocate? But it's just wonderful to share a network of people that are passionate about what they do, telling great stories. You were just telling me off mic, you're writing a lot right now, and I'm producing the Prison Chronicles, and we're hopefully by the time this comes out, we'll be 80-90% of the way done, if not done. It's just remarkable to see all of, look, especially in the veteran space, but just in general, all of the people that have an opportunity to create something special doing that very thing.
Yeah, this, like you said, it's been about a year now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we've been seeing like some crazy collaborations on and off. I mean, not just between you and I, but between our whole network. And the network just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah.
And everybody's not out for themselves. It seemed like that, maybe in the beginning when this all started to happen, people just kind of wanted to get their own space. But now people are like, hey, you know what? If I help him, he helps me. We help each other. It's all good.
It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, like when you stop thinking about yourself, not that you ignore your own well-being, but just being able to go, hey, there's plenty here for everybody. Let me make sure I help Jason out. Let me make sure I help out this. These things start to mount up into multiple wins where you're just like, everybody around here is winning and getting something positive out of the exchange that we're all doing. And it's not just the veteran space, but definitely, that's true for us, but just all the people out there that, they're willing to share their show, whether they're in our space or not, or access in general. They've got a book to talk about. They're a speaker, they're an entrepreneur, whatever it is. There's just one of the good things about all this social media stuff is that you can connect with anybody and at least have a chance to be told no. In a lot of cases, like that wouldn't be possible a few years ago,
Well, this is all therapy as well. I mean, I like how you pull up the veteran space, and it's the veterans, law enforcement, it's everybody. And just the power of conversation, the power of writing, and the power of just getting it all done. It brings that positivity back in your life, kind of where that little darkness kind of settles in the back there. So you always keep busy.
So when you're talking about keeping busy and trying to keep your head on straight, one of the things that you do is write. I mean, you've got a PhD. That means you spent 5+ years post grad school, getting a degree, and it's not even something you tout. Do you just have to constantly self-develop and go after all of these things, or what's the deal? How come you're still doing so much?
I don't, and that's the thing is, so mine's a little bit different than a PhD. It's a doctorate. A PhD is more for like the academics. Mine's more of like, hey, there's a problem out there. Let's fix it. And that's kind of what my mentality always is like, if there's a problem, I feel like I need to fix it. And I don't know if that has something to do with my experience in the military or law enforcement or whatever, but I always just had this desire to either spread knowledge or help fix the problem. And that's kind of why I'm always writing, always podcasting, always doing whatever I can. Why writing about it? Why podcasting? Why not, look, you talked about it on the episode with Eli Crane. Why aren't you running for office? Why aren't you doing something from within the system? I like how you say that. Why aren't I running for office? Well, I still have a couple years left in the Fed. I'm still working for the government, but then there's just so much dirt thrown everywhere for anybody who wants to run for office. And after a while, you're just kind of like, do I want to put my family through that? Do I want to put myself through that? Or can I just work on the outside and kind of try to make it better? But yeah, I thought about running. I thought about running for Jersey, the 5th congressional district up where I grew up. But that might be in the future. Maybe, Piccolo 2022, 2024, something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe in the future you run for office and everything, but you want to work from the outside. One of the things that we also have learned over the past year, and this is not a surprise, no one's actually learned this, we know this, but the news cycle is such that, and we're so focused on President Trump, that we just careen from issue to issue to issue and never actually, and get this, the legislators ever actually legislate an answer or an attempted answer to the problem. So you and I recorded months ago now. We kind of illustrated the border problem, and what's been done since then.
Zero. And I've been to Congress 3 or 4 times since then. Yeah. Actually going to meet with some good people, and they want to do good things. And, you can't. And, lately, we're going to talk about it in a minute, but I've been focusing a lot on the children that are at a crisis at the border, because you know what? I don't know about you, but we're both parents.
Yeah.
And actually, I do know about you. You can't discount a child at all.
Right.
If someone's like, 20-year-old gang member, an adult, re-entering the border or whatever, you could legally say they're entering illegal. But when you got like a 2 or 3-year-old kids, babies, get shuffled across the border and used as pawns, you can't not do something about that, regardless of what their nationality is.
So we're worried about kids and the border. And I think it was Bernie Sanders the other day said that he would not rip any kids out of anybody's hands. And that's great. A senator should say that. And this is not and I mean this is not a knock on Senator Sanders as he tries to solve this impossible problem. But what's the reality on the ground, man? What's the deal? I mean,
and you know what? I'm glad that he doesn't want to rip the kids out of anybody's hands, because they shouldn't be. If you do a rapid DNA analysis or you do some sort of vetting that could verify that adult is with the right kid and that's their child or their family relation, then you know what? Keep them together. And under the floor settlement agreement, they could be released into the interior of the country within 20 days until they see a immigration judge. But until you verify, validate, vet, determine that child is actually with their family member, then you have to separate them. And I just did an article today, and by the time this post, it would have been out for a little while. And what happened was I wrote an article about Homeland Security doing investigations into these little babies, little tender age kids at the border getting recycled and used by smuggling organizations in order to get adults across the border.
Wow, man.
So the adults are exploiting little kids, man.
Yeah.
And it's happening. It's not just like one or two here and there.
Right.
And even if it was one or two here and there, that's still one or two too many.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. It's one or two too many for sure. So, okay, what the fuck do we do about that?
That is, that's the question. And that's why I write these articles. I wrote a little book about it. I call it a nonfiction short about, the exploitation of children. And we have to get both parties to sit at the damn table and do something. And they need ground truth. And it's got to be this is like a nonpartisan issue. This should just be like, hey, you know what? These are little kids. Got to do something about it.
Well, you said both parties. I still don't know who for sure you're talking about. I could guess, but I really don't know what you mean by that. Like, what do you mean by both parties?
I remember meeting Republicans, Democrats, everybody sitting down at the table doing something about it, man. And it just, Republicans, Democrats, independents, everybody.
Right. So what about Mexico? Are they part of that part? Are they part of this thing?
Well, Mexico, they really don't have a hand in these adults using children.
Okay.
I mean, Mexico's not going to vet these people out. They're not going to use rapid DNA. They're not going to do anything. And I don't even think they have the technology or the resources to do it, even if they did. And then how do we even determine with the corruption in Mexico that what they're telling us is the truth?
Right. And this just goes right back to the bigger problem of when you look at the border and you say, and again, you have to always caveat all these things, Jason. So you say, okay, we want to deal with the border and we're going to use drones and smart technology. We're not going to have a fence and we're going to let that, 1,200-mile border, be open. And then we want to be humane. Do those things, is that even possible? Can you do this humanely? I mean, we got kids being repeatedly human trafficked. I mean, there's no way these kids are in front of tutors. These are just forgotten kids. The kids that everybody cares about, they're.
Well, yeah, let me tell you a little story about I interviewed Homeland Security Investigations last week, which is part of ICE, the demonized ICE. And they told me about a recent operation they had. It was Operation Noble Eagle. Noble Guardian. I always say Noble Eagle because of the Bosnia. Remember that? What they told me was they had little kids, 2 to 3, 4 years old, coming across the border. And these kids already had a plane ticket back to the Northern Triangle. Meaning these adults were crossing with those kids, getting released in 20 days, and these kids already had a plane ticket to be used again by another adult to get across the border.
Right.
And they were picking these kids up at the airport as they were leaving and, rescuing them. Because if not, how many times are these kids used?
And then what?
The other thing.
Then what? What does our horrible government do when they find these kids and they liberate them from human trafficking? Do we send them back to Mexico too?
No, eventually they'll see an immigration judge, but I don't know the numbers of anybody that's actually getting removed. Mm-hmm. But now that they're victims, we could essentially give them a victim visa, because they're victims of trafficking and smuggling.
Yeah.
It's just, these are little kids, man. And, it makes me sick. And, at least during this time frame, the past couple of years, we are using DNA. We are taking fingerprints of sponsors, people that are taking these kids. But people don't realize that you can't fingerprint any child coming across a border if they are 14 years or younger. So you really don't have any idea of how many kids are being used over and over again.
Yeah.
Because the only thing you could do is either it's by self-admission. Hey, you know what? This is my second, third time coming across. Or it's through a name and everything else verification. And it's not until we change the law to where we could take biometrics of kids under 14 and where we could actually, maybe keep everybody in custody until we determine whether or not they're with the right adult, then there's really no solution.
Right. Yes. Okay. So these kids come across, they get trafficked back, they continue to go on this cycle. How are these kids moving? I mean, these are got to be small kids. You're not hiring, 25-year-old kids.
Facilitators. And that's one thing I found out too, is these smuggling organizations pay facilitators. And a lot of times these facilitators, at least the ones that are U.S. based, have some sort of legal permission to be here. Whether that's they have a green card, meaning they're here lawfully admitted for permanent residency, are they U.S. citizens?
Mm-hmm.
So they could fly back and forth. So what they do is either get these kids on a plane, or they actually accompany them back to one of the northern triangle countries, and then they fly back, and then those kids come back through the smuggling system used by the trafficking and smuggling organizations.
So this is a Republican problem.
It's an everybody problem, but this has been going on. The influx of kids have started in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to get into a little legal mumbo jumbo here, but they have something called the Flores Amendment.
Okay.
Flores Settlement Agreement, Flores Amendment. And what that is it was reinterpreted in 2015. And what that made it is if you're coming across the border as a family unit, i.e. an adult with a child,
right,
then you have to be released from custody within 20 days. Because according to the law, a child can't remain in custody for more than 20 days. That's why adults are using children to get across the border, because they know they're going to get released with that child into the interior of the country. And then it's their responsibility to show up to see an immigration judge, whether that be in 6 months to a year when they have an immigration court appearance, etc. The other thing I found out too is if the adult is put on what they call an alternatives to detention, i.e. a GPS device, that 9 times out of 10, or might be a little bit less than that, but that GPS is just getting cut off and left in the trash. So that's not working.
The hell
either.
you say?
It's just such a broken system, man.
Yeah.
And it's going to stay this way until somebody does something. I mean, I can write 1,000 articles. I can go before Congress, but until we all sit down and do something, I don't know, man.
So, okay, no shit. What do we do?
What do we do? Jason Piccolo, 2024. No, I don't know. That's one solution. But we really need to get the optics out there of the reality of the border situation. Now, if you read any of my books or articles or anything, I pretty much stay in the middle of the road. I mean, yes, I'm conservative to an extent, but I'm not like, right wing, and I'm not crazy. Crazy left, crazy right, crazy anything.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure something happens and we can actually, maybe save a life.
Is this a solvable problem?
It is. It's just, you need the right actors at the right table.
Mm-hmm.
And, being here in Washington, D.C., i.e. what they call the swamp, you find out it's really tough to get anything done here. And nothing is getting done right now. But how can this not be like an issue that everybody can get behind? Right. Take out the adults, take out everything, but everybody can get behind saving kids.
Yeah.
And that's one thing we were going to talk about it a little bit, and that's, I always forget. It's like the whole doctor and everything else, but I did just write I call it a nonfiction short. It's almost like a nonfiction novella. And it's an 80-page book. It's called Out of the Shadows, a government whistleblower's firsthand account of how the protection of migrant children became a political firestorm. And it's one of these things where I wrote it because I'm like, hey, you know what? Here's the reality. And this is, I wanted to get a short read out there that anybody can read it and kind of have a good overview of what's going on at the border, especially with the unaccompanied kids. So, man, that's kind of one of the reasons I wrote the book real quick and got it out there. And I'll write as many books as I possibly can, as long as people keep reading them and keep getting a general idea of what's going on or focused idea. Let's do it.
When you look at, I mean, like what you're doing is important, right? But there's, like you said, it's hard to get anything done because, well, let's just say it, because of the partisan nonsense that happens. And when I'm saying partisan nonsense, I'm pointing my fingers at all 500 and however many of them that are up there on the Hill. I mean, let's be honest, as a whole, as a body, their ratings are lower than the president, who apparently more than half of us hate. So, what do we got to do to get these legislators to focus on this problem? I mean, they're running on it, right? I mean, Bernie Sanders talked about it in the debate. For sure, Elizabeth Warren has talked about it. These people are running on this thing, but they're not doing anything about it.
No, and that's one thing I've they're running on sound bites. They're not running on, in-depth analysis of what's the border reality. I guarantee if I reached out to ICE, Homeland Security, anybody else has a footprint on what's going on at the border, that they probably had very limited or none response from anybody other than Congress as far as reaching out to them saying, hey, you know what? How do we fix this?
Right.
It's probably like, hey, you know what? I know I worked at the ICE headquarters for, years. And a lot of the congressional inquiries were all specific to like one or two cases. There was hardly any that were like, hey, let's fix this major problem. It's like, hey, one of my constituents asked about this. It's never, let's do this, let's fix this.
Right. Okay, so people aren't willing to fix it, but they're willing to run on it. Is it, I know I said, is it possible? But is there a champion? I mean, is this something that you can take to, like fellow service members, Tulsi Gabbard, Michael Waltz, Dan Crenshaw? I'm leaving out the other ones. I guess Duncan Hunter, if you want to include him.
Yeah, there is. And you know what? I think that's a great idea. Is like, that's one of the reasons I wrote this book, and I'll give them free copies of it, all day long. And that's why I write these articles. Get them out there. Maybe someone will retweet it. Maybe someone will kind of be like, oh, you know what? That makes sense. Because, they're dealing with a million different things.
Mm-hmm.
But if they're going to be running on these topics, they need to know what they're talking about.
Right. Is there a solution that's party specific? Like, does one party have their hands wrapped around this thing? We just need to get out of the way and let them do it? Or is this always going to have to be bipartisan?
Immigration's always bipartisan.
Okay.
Regardless of what it is. That's why I'm hoping if we bring up, hey, just narrow focus on trafficking, smuggling, children.
Right.
And my next book is actually going to be about trafficking, like the bigger picture.
Okay.
Because we need real knowledge out there. There's a lot of separate and sparse knowledge. And a lot of it, like I said before, is a soundbite. Hey, you know what? There was 20 people trafficked over here. Mm-hmm. Big operation. Cool. Then you just flip the channel to the next thing. You have to get this into the forefront of someone's mind that has a decision authority.
Right. Is trafficking a separate problem from immigration?
Yeah, it is actually, because not all, and that's one thing. I'm working on an article right now with this Deliver Fund, which is a great organization made up of like ex-CIA, SEALs, a bunch of other people. And we're talking about trafficking in middle America. That's not connected to the Southwest border.
Uh-huh.
And what signs are out there, what these organizations are comprised of, because not everything that gets trafficked in this country is getting trafficked through the border.
Right.
And it can be trafficked from state to state, county to county, town to town. And that's kind of, yes, I do have a border expertise, but I want to get into the whole world of trafficking to try to, shine optics on it.
Right. Right. Okay, so let's get back down to the border. Kids in cages. What is the reality? I mean, I get it that people from Congress go down there, but no shit. What's the reality?
Well, the cages, when we talked about this a couple times before, is the kids in cages started in 2014, 2015.
Okay.
Because the influx of migration pattern with unaccompanied alien children started in 2013. It was tens of thousands, and then it started getting up to the, 60, 70,000, 80,000 little kids coming across the border. And yes, there were MS-13. I always say this, there were MS-13 gang members integrated in them. But there were, by and far, a lot of them were under 10. We're talking tender age kids.
Yeah.
And my definition of tender age is anything under 10. Border Patrol is anything under 13.
Mm-hmm.
It's just different. My tender age, it just depends on the story I'm writing, because you can kind of tell what's tender age.
Right.
But yeah, these kids were coming across so many at a time that the Border Patrol, our Customs and Border Protection officers, couldn't process them all at the same time. It takes time to process someone, take their name, biometrics. And oh, by the way, if they're under 14, you can't take their fingerprints. They still got to screen them. So when all these kids came in back then in the prior administration, they were kept within cages. And then later on, they became encampments during this administration. And then they had expedited ways for they can get vetted through the process into the hands of a sponsor.
Let me make sure
so that's
we
where they
back up and say this again, because this is not a party-specific thing. Like you said earlier, immigration is always bipartisan. So we've been putting kids into cages and separating them from the adults around them. Let's not call them parents, because now we know that not all of them are parents. And that system is being exploited to the disadvantage of the kid and the advantage of the illegal immigrant and the traffickers. So let's just say the person with them. They've been getting into cages for a while. Does that go back to George the Younger's days?
It goes back forever, because here's the problem: is if you get 1,000 bodies coming across the border at one time in one area, you simply don't have anywhere to put anybody. And you have to separate kids from adults. You have to separate men from women. And there's simply not enough room.
Right.
And that's why they built these huge facilities with cages back in 2014, 2015.
Right.
And that's why you're seeing these big tent cities popping up on the border, because, you got 100,000 to 1 million people coming through a sector a month. There's nowhere to put them.
Yeah. Yeah, the last episode we talked, and you guys definitely should listen to the episode before. I'll put it in the show notes with Jason Piccolo. We talked about just the logistical problem. Like a guy like me who's going to sit down and screen all of these people that come through, and then how many people it takes to keep me out there on the border. And then when the Pete that needs a gallbladder surgery leaves for 2 weeks, someone has to fill that chair. And so all of a sudden you've got this enormous organization that, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, this stuff comes in waves, so you don't always need all of the people there all of the time. Is that correct?
And you don't know which area it's going to come through. Yeah, a lot of it comes through the Rio Grande Valley. But what if one day they heard, hey, you know what, a couple thousand are going to go through Yuma or some other some other portion of California where there's just not enough resources out there? How do you just keep busing them all around? You still have to screen them. You still have to vet them. You still have to check them for medical stuff. And what happens if you find criminals within a group? Then you have to process them as a criminal, meaning you got to present their case to prosecution, to the U.S. Attorney's Office. That's all resources, man. It's all resources.
And when you do have kids that come through with adults and that person has a criminal record, is it even responsible to leave? Can you leave that kid with that adult? Even if it is their mom or dad.
Hey, this is P.A. Turner from Lions Rock Productions. We create podcasts around here. And if you, your brand, or your company want to figure out how to do a podcast, just talk to me. I'll give you the advice on the right gear, the best plan, and show you how to take a podcast that makes sense for you, that's sustainable, that's scalable, and fun. Hit me up at pete@breakitdownshow.com. Let me help. I want to hear about it.
Kid with that adult? Even if it is their mom or dad.
Well, that's the other thing they're having a problem with right now is a lot of these kids are coming across with adults who either do have a criminal record or they're removable for another offense. And what do? You have to get them before an immigration judge right away. And you're not going to be able to get in front of an immigration judge within 20 days. So it's such a broken system.
Yeah. But something that has a solution. Again,
there is a solution.
If we're taking it serious, and this is always like my foreign policy thing, like with long wars. Like if we're going to get involved in long wars, great, sign me up. But let's understand what we're doing and why we're going there, so that we can assess if we need to be there, But to just stay there indefinitely and complain about it, or to look, let's not act like we give a fuck about Syrian kids that are getting blown up if we're not going to do a goddamn thing about it except for send a couple of guys and get them blown up,
Yeah, exactly.
Let's actually have, it's okay to say that ain't working. Pull it back. Let's try something else. Let's try more technology. Let's try less technology. Let's throw more money at it. Let's throw more people at it. Let's throw more technology, more people, more money at it. Ah, shit, that didn't work. Let's pull back. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But let's not get mad and hate the Republicans or hate the Democrats because it doesn't work out. This shit is hard.
Everything's hard. And the thing is, we always forget the life cycle of knowledge changes as well. You do 3 or 4 years, you become a subject matter expert, you move on. And it just keeps cycling through and through and through, and all your true experts move on. So, it's just a broken system.
Does anybody, who is the champion for this? Who is the person you're like, this person wants to solve it and they're not fucking around?
I don't know, man. If I could figure that out, I'd like to get a conversation.
It sounds like it's you.
I mean, I do, but I'm just a nobody, man.
What, yeah, okay, yeah. So what is a somebody then? I mean, how does Jason become a somebody? Obviously, you're writing, you're talking, you're podcasting, you're networking. You know, you can only do so much. But what kind of help do you need?
Just get the word out there, man. You know, if you don't want to buy the book, tell me. I'll send you a book. I'll send you an ebook. Let's just figure it out. Read my articles. Just really get the message out there.
When you talk to, go ahead.
And yeah, I do talk to.
Yeah,
Congress
when you talk
all the
to
time.
Congress, what is their reception to your presence alone? I mean, just to get a meeting, you know, shockingly is already hard.
Oh yeah, it's great, man, and it's very surprising how easy it is to get a meeting. So when you hear these people saying that they can't get a meeting with a congressman, well, you can't just bombard them in a hallway and say, "Talk to me now." You know, you get a hold of their staff, you get a hold of them, and you find out and say, and why do they want to talk to you? Do you have something that you need to talk to them about, or are you just here to get a soundbite? So, yeah, I keep reaching out to different members of Congress, and after the holidays, I'm definitely going to be heading back over that way and talking, bro. Just keep talking and try to be knowledgeable. That's one thing about doing all this is I have to keep up to date. Hence my conversations with different subject matter experts, with the agencies themselves, etc.
When you do encounter these folks, I mean, obviously you're sort of party agnostic when it comes to this problem, but are you experiencing people that are genuinely concerned, or what is your sense? Like, you know, to be unfair and paint them with a broad brush, how would you paint this? Is this a problem they care about?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you bring up trafficking
Mm-hmm.
in kids, everybody wants to say in that. It's the same thing with veteran suicide. It's like you bring that up to any congressman or anything, like, well, we need to do something about it. Then
All right, let's do it.
Same thing with kids. Let's do
get to work. If you could change one thing about human trafficking, we'll start there. What would you want to change?
Oof. Like about the actual human trafficking itself?
Yeah, like if you were if you could get Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell in the same room, and you're like, here is the one thing I want you guys to write legislation on and pass. What would that thing be?
Well, stricter sentencings does help in a way, but the thing is, until someone gets arrested, they never even really think about, hey, you know what? I'm going to go do 20 years for this. The big thing is funding. You need funding for these organizations and agencies to go out there and work together. And I'd make it mandatory that you have to work together, i.e. task forces and stuff like that. Get all these different entities, like, because ICE has two different entities. They have enforcement removal operations, Homeland Security investigations that works with Customs and Border Protection, DEA, FBI. Everybody's got to be able to work together across agencies. And you do get that a lot at the field level. And just get rid of some layers of bureaucracy and let these guys and girls get to work.
And then what about the immigration problem? What's like the one thing that you'd want to try to change?
I would change. I would sit down and they would have to do something about Flores, whether that's, you need an extra 5 days, an extra 2 days or whatever, but you need to have something to where you have enough time to vet out these adults that they're with the right child. I don't know if that's more time, more resources, more whatever, but you're going to have to do something about that, because how many children, handed over or accompanying the wrong adult is too many. Like I said before, one is too many to me, but what's the metrics?
And then if you're talking about the wrong parent with the kid, what if it is the right parent? What if there is no criminal record and this is just, a family that comes through? Are we able to just take them and do something, I don't know, more humane, or what's the norm? Like if you come through and you are trying to immigrate legally, you're taking your shot in it. Yeah.
Well, you still have 20 days. So the family will be released in 20 days to the interior of the country. But right now we have, 800 something to 850,000 backlogged immigration cases, plus the hundreds of thousands that are currently on the docket. And we have 420 immigration judges.
420?
And that doesn't include all 420.
How many cases can they reasonably hear in a month?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
And, you know, a lot of times when you see some of these appeals that come through, you know, you're talking about 8-9 boxes full of appeal paperwork that judges and clerks and lawyers and everybody else has to go through. So it's broken, bro. It's broken all around. It's not just at the border. It's the whole immigration system.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, man, that is such a challenging thing. And that's, again, this is what aggravates me about the folks that are in office and grandstand instead of saying, this is a problem. Let me go grab so-and-so from across the aisle because there's no way we're fixing this by ourselves. You know, this has got to be dealt with, by a committee and everything.
I always say, piecemeal it out. You need don't drop one of these like 2,000 page documents and think you're going to get anything done.
Right. Yeah, it's just.
Well, Pete, I appreciate you having me on, man. This is good.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just it is a good conversation, and it's frustrating because I've got 100 more questions. I'm not going to ask them all today, but it's just when you survey.
Yeah, we definitely need to have another conversation.
Well, like when we survey the whole problem, right? Like, if Congress wants to deal with it. I mean, okay, let me ask you this. Is Congress able to, right now, at the current state of affairs and how bimodal we are they able to deal with this problem, do you think?
No, absolutely not. They can't get anything done. Impeachment's the only name of the game right now. If you want to take a trafficking and victims legislation that's out there, which I don't even know what's out there, and try to piecemeal it out and get some of it passed through, there's always going to be issues in one way or the other. So
one of the things I always encourage everybody who listens, all of my friends and everything, is to get involved, get in front of the vote. Don't just vote. Like that's the end of the line. You have to get involved ahead of that. So what's your advice? How does someone who's like wants to get involved locally or at the county level or state level or even the federal level, what can they do to create some motion on the, I mean, if we really care about this problem, right? We all have 20 minutes to put in and if we don't have 20 minutes to put in for the problem, then I guess we just don't care. So if we got 20 minutes, how does a person use their 20 minutes to get something done?
Well, if you actually call a congressman's office or a senator's office, 9 times out of 10, someone will pick up. That's one way to do it. Call, write opinion pieces, talk, and really talk to someone. Don't just, throw out a bunch of fiery rhetoric for a soundbite and then move on. And don't just listen to the MSNBCs, Fox Newses, or anything else. Get your own opinion.
Yeah. Okay, so what's coming up next for you? I mean, obviously the book is out. People can go to Amazon and get it, or you'll frankly give it to them just so that they can read it. But what else is going up?
What's next? Well, besides collaborating with you some more on a bunch of different projects, working on a book, Trafficking in Small Town America, and hopefully I'll be pushing that out sometime before the summer. And then working, podcasting,
continuing to do that repetition thing. So let's talk a little bit about this flyover project that I've been working on. I've been doing quite a bit of pre-production on trying to get this thing to fly, and it seems like it's got wings. Like the more I
think it does too. I saw your overlay about it.
The more we get all of this division, the more I understand that people are sick of that and they want to hear something different than that. I would say that they are rejecting what they're hearing in the news because it doesn't reflect what they experience in this country.
Yeah, people want to see what the reality is out there, and they want to talk. Regular America wants to talk. I call it real America, but all it is just you get off the main highways, and you go and you chat with some people, and you and I have a great idea. It was your idea, actually.
Yeah, but I'm going to make you do it.
You travel from. Yeah, you travel from your half of the country, and I travel from mine, and we chat.
Have you thought about your path?
No, I've been so swamped, man. I'm getting on it.
So what interests you in this project? I mean, if you are going, 20 locations in let's say 3 weeks and everything, that's a lot of hard work. Why do this? Like, what's in it for you?
What's in it for me is the same thing I'm doing right now, man. We're talking about trying to solve real problems and getting everybody else's idea. I don't want to just use my ideas. I want to know what other people think about, topics.
Yeah.
What do they think about the current state of affairs? What do they think about trafficking? What do they think about anything? I want to get different views. It's more of an eye opening for me. And then if I could put my words to the sound,
Yeah.
you know, and not just on paper or both, and then have other people learn from me.
Yeah.
That'd be perfect.
How great would it be if the Democratic Party and the Republican Party both funded this? You know,
That'd
like
be
if they
awesome.
said, hey, we're going to do this together. We don't do a lot together, but this we're going to fund because we do want to get a better idea of what America is.
Yeah. Let's set them
I
up.
like it. I like it. Well, listen, I don't want to take any more of your time. It's Christmas week. It's the eve of Christmas Eve. Do you want to ask me any questions? Shit, I didn't even offer. I'm sorry.
We're going to talk more after
All
this.
right, cool. Well, listen, man, I appreciate you coming on. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to everybody. Happy Kwanzaa. Happy Hanukkah. It's not even fucking Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak. You know?
What is it?
Festivus. Yes. All of the holidays during this joyous time of year, even if your holiday is moving along to another time. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate you. And man, seriously, just thanks a lot for coming on and hanging out.
Yeah, brother. Anytime, man.